He ruled the docks without a gun, and every fish in New York paid for his permission to swim ashore. If you love stories about power, rackets, and how the Mafia turned an entire city's dinner table into a toll booth, make sure to subscribe, because this one smells like money and fish. Manhattan, 1925, 4:15 a.m. The Fulton Fish Market wakes before the city does. The air is cold, wet, and heavy with salt. Men in rubber aprons drag crates of cod and mackerel off trucks. Icy water runs through the gutters like rain. Buyers from restaurants and hotels haggle in shouts. Nobody notices the short, well-dressed man standing at the corner of South Street and Fulton. His name is Joseph Lanza. Everyone calls him Socks. He's not a fisherman, not a wholesaler, not a union man, not officially. He's a gangster from the Lower East Side who just discovered the most profitable racket in the city. Food that can't wait. Fish spoils fast. That's what makes it perfect. If a delivery is delayed even an hour, the cargo turns worthless. A man who can control the timing, who can decide which trucks get through the gates first, can control the entire market. Lanza understands that better than anyone. By 1926, he begins working his way into Local 359 of the United Seafood Workers Union. He doesn't join, he takes over. At first, it's subtle. He sends a few enforcers to resolve fights between dock workers. He settles disputes about delivery schedules. When a wholesaler can't pay union fees, Lanza offers to help with a small loan. Within a year, nobody moves a crate at Fulton without his say-so. By 1928, Lanza has formal control of the union. His office is a shack on the pier, but the power he wields stretches from Maine to Maryland. He sets delivery quotas, assigns dock space, and dictates how much every fish wholesaler must pay in association dues. The wholesalers call it what it is: protection money. If you don't pay, your trucks are stopped. If you complain, your shipments rot on the pier. In 1 week, Lanza collects more than the average dock worker makes in a year. The operation grows fast. By the early 1930s, Fulton handles nearly 100 million pounds of fish annually, worth over $20 million in Depression-era dollars. Lanza takes a piece of every crate. He builds his headquarters inside Pier 18, where the smell of diesel and brine never fades. His men wear aprons and carry clipboards instead of guns. They call themselves inspectors. Their job is to count boxes, check licenses, and remind everyone who really runs the market. Wholesalers pay 10 cents per crate to Local 359. The union deposits half officially, keeps half off the books. Lanza's couriers collect the difference every Friday. It's crime disguised as logistics. 1939. America is preparing for war, and the waterfront becomes a national security concern. German U-boats patrol the Atlantic, and federal authorities fear sabotage in the docks. That's when Lanza's power becomes indispensable. Naval intelligence agents approach him quietly. They know he controls every longshoreman in Lower Manhattan. They need help preventing Axis infiltration and keeping information off the streets. Lanza agrees, in exchange for leniency on tax and union investigations. Within months, he becomes an informant for the Office of Naval Intelligence, helping to secure the waterfront from enemy agents. The government doesn't know that, or doesn't care, that the man protecting their ports is also extorting them. 22. Lanza's influence peaks. His network includes fishermen in New England, wholesalers in Baltimore, and restaurant suppliers in Philadelphia. He's the unseen toll collector of the Eastern Seaboard. The New York Journal-American calls him the dock mayor, but not everyone plays along. A small wholesaler named Anthony "Tony" Fish, Maggio refuses to pay union dues after discovering his competitors get cheaper rates through bribes. 2 nights later, his truck catches fire on the West Side Highway. The next morning, Maggio's business partner files for bankruptcy. Police find no suspects. The case disappears. What federal? Prosecutors open an investigation into corruption in Local 359. Lanza is indicted for extortion and price fixing under the Sherman Antitrust Act. His defense: I'm just a labor leader. Witnesses vanish. Records go missing. A key informant recants on the stand. Lanza is convicted, but receives a light sentence, 5 to 10 years. While inside Sing Sing, he continues to direct operations through his brother and trusted lieutenant, Joseph "Joe the Sheik" Aponte. Even behind bars, Lanza collects money from the docks, 1949. Lanza is paroled early. He returns to Fulton to a hero's welcome. The fish keeps coming. The trucks still line up before dawn, and every man still pays the same fee. By now, Fulton is the heartbeat of the American seafood trade. Every restaurant from New York to Boston depends on it. The market moves more than 100 million pounds of fish each year, and the Genovese family takes a cut of every shipment. When a new buyer arrives from Connecticut and tries to bypass the Union, his cargo accidentally falls into the river. The message spreads fast. You want fish? You go through Socks. Throughout the 1950s, Lanza expands his control into ice supply, trucking permits, and loading crews. He builds an alliance with Vito Genovese, then rising to power as one of New York's 5 family bosses. Genovese provides protection. Lanza provides steady income. Cash, no risk, no headlines. Each crate of fish represents another quiet profit. The FBI later estimates that Lanza personally collects $50,000 a week, untaxed, untraceable. In 1959, Joseph Socks Lanza dies of heart disease at his home in Long Island. His funeral draws hundreds of dock workers, wholesalers, and union men. The New York Daily News headline reads, "Dock Mayor Dies." Market silent for 1 hour, but the silence doesn't last. His successors, Carmine Romano, Vincent Jimmy Blue Eyes, Alo, and later Anthony Fat Tony Salerno, keep the machine running. The Genovese family simply replaces the man, not the model. Fulton keeps moving fish and the Mafia keeps collecting its tax. By the 1960s, the market is handling $1 billion in annual revenue in today's money. No receipts mention the mob, no ledgers list their names. But every crate, every dollar still passes through their hands. Manhattan, 1965, 2:30 a.m. The smell hits before the sound does. Salt, diesel, and decay. Forklifts scream across the pier. Floodlights cut through the fog. It's business as usual at the Fulton Fish Market, and every crate that crosses the dock still pays tribute to the same family, the Genovese crime family. Joseph Socks Lanza is gone, but his ghost remains in every handshake, every delivery, every union form stamped at Pier 18. His successors, Carmine Romano, Vincent Alo, and later Anthony Fat Tony Salerno, keep the system alive with clockwork precision. The process hasn't changed since the 1930s. Wholesalers unload their fish before dawn. Union delegates, really mob enforcers, decide who unloads first and how much each shipment costs to protect. Every Friday, couriers collect envelopes marked Union Expenses. Inside are hundreds of dollars in cash from each stall owner. A percentage goes to the official Union Fund. The rest goes upstairs to Romano and the Genovese crew. It's a tax on movement. The fish comes in from Maine and Canada, lands at Fulton by dawn, and moves out to restaurants and hotels before noon. Missing that window means losing the cargo. The mob doesn't need to threaten violence. The clock does it for them. The federal government begins to notice. The Waterfront Commission of New York Harbor, formed years earlier to fight longshore corruption, sends inspectors through the market. They find ledgers with mysterious dues columns and identical handwriting across multiple businesses. No one talks. The dock workers shrug. Wholesalers say it's just how things are done. The commission writes in its annual report, control of unloading crews, truck access, and ice supply at Fulton Fish Market remains under influence of organized crime figures believed affiliated with the Genovese family. Nothing changes. Carmine Romano, her Genovese capo, becomes the new supervisor of Local 359. He's calm, polite, and ruthless. He tells reporters he's just protecting jobs. Behind closed doors, he rebuilds Lanza's old racket with modern efficiency. The union leases forklifts from mob-owned companies. The ice supply comes from a Genovese front in Brooklyn. The truck permits are handled by a consulting firm registered to Romano's wife. Every step adds another invisible fee. By 1975, federal agents estimate that 10 cents of every dollar spent at Fulton ends up in mob hands. The FBI opens Operation Seafood, a long-term surveillance case under the organized crime strike. Forced agents wiretap payphones near the market and plant microphones in nearby bars. They record truck drivers being told which wholesalers to use. union delegates negotiating cash adjustments, and Romano himself boasting, "You could take every fish in this city, and not one moves without my guys." Knowing where it's swimming, the recordings never make it to trial. The FBI can't risk exposing informants, but they confirm what prosecutors already know. Fulton is still a Mafia monopoly. Every pound of fish needs ice. Without it, it spoils. By the late 1970s, the ice racket becomes more profitable than the fish itself. The Genovese family controls Hudson Ice Company, the only major supplier approved by local. 359. Competitors who try to sell ice at the market have their trucks vandalized or their deliveries accidentally blocked by inspectors. Wholesalers pay double the market rate for ice, and they can't complain, and because without it, their fish dies before sunrise. One internal FBI memo in 1978 states, organized crime figures have created a captive economy within Fulton Market, controlling ice transport and unloading labor through intimidation and union power. By 1980, Fulton Fish Market moves over $700 million a year in seafood. A conservative estimate puts the mob's cut at 5 to 10%. That's $35 to $70 million a year. Untaxed, unrecorded, and invisible. Most of it comes in small envelopes. $50 here, $100 there, paid in cash before sunrise. No receipts, no witnesses, Romanos. Men call it dock maintenance. The FBI calls it racketeering. Union member Sydney. Slater turns informant after being beaten for refusing to pay higher dues. He tells agents how Romano personally decides which companies can unload their trucks and which must. Wait, if you're on his list, your fish stays fresh, Slater says. If you're not, you might as well feed it to the Hudson, Lisa. Testimony sparks the first federal grand jury investigation into Fulton Fish Market corruption since Lanza's era. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan files charges under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, accusing Romano, Salerno, and others of using the union to extort millions. Federal agents raid the union offices at Pier 18, seizing ledgers, payroll records, and blank envelopes filled with cash. Wholesalers are subpoenaed to testify. Most plead ignorance. One grand jury transcript reads, "Prosecutor, who collects the dues?" Witness, a guy named Carmine. Prosecutor, Carmine who? Witness, if I say, I won't make it to tomorrow. Fear still rules the docks. After Romano's indictment, Anthony Fat Tony, Salerno, the powerful Genovese boss, assumes control through intermediaries. He meets with union officers at Palladino's bar near the market every Thursday morning. The FBI bugs the bar. On one tape, Salerno jokes, "I don't eat fish, but I own everyone in New York." When agents play the tape for prosecutors, they decide it's time to end the racket for good. On October 16, 1987, the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI launch a joint civil RICO action to seize control of the Fulton Fish Market. Federal marshals and inspectors move in before dawn, escorted by armed agents. Wholesalers freeze as the raid unfolds. Papers are seized, safes opened, and cash counted. That day's haul, $480,000 in unreported currency from one pier alone. The headline the next morning reads, "Feds try to seize mob-run fish market." UPI News Archive, October 16, 1987. It's the beginning of the end of an empire that lasted 60 years. The Genovese lawyers argue that the market is a private cooperative, not subject to seizure. Federal prosecutors counter with decades of evidence, ledgers, recordings, and witness statements. The judge sides with the government. He writes, "The Fulton Fish Market has been operated as an enterprise of organized crime. Its independence must be restored to lawful control." For the first time since 1925, the Mafia loses its grip on the seafood capital of America. But even then, the FBI knows the problem won't vanish overnight. The market still moves millions of pounds a month, and new middlemen quickly fill the gaps left by Salerno's fall. An agent writes in his closing memo, "We can remove the men, but the system they built will survive for years." New York City, 1990, 3 a.m. The trucks still roll through South Street. Forklifts still grind against the pier. The air still smells of salt and diesel. But the mood is different now. The men unloading the fish glance over their shoulders more often. Federal marshals walk the docks with clipboards. Every cash payment is watched, every crate counted. The Fulton Fish Market, once a kingdom without a crown, is now a battlefield between the past and the law. After the 1987 RICO raids, the Genovese family didn't disappear. They adapted. The government's seizure orders stripped the mob of official control, but behind the paperwork the same faces remained. The same foremen, the same truck dispatchers, the same cash envelopes. When Anthony Fat Tony Salerno was sentenced to 100 years in 1987 during the commission case, his men quietly regrouped. Salerno's lieutenant, Vincent Fish Cafaro, took over collections until his own arrest in 1989. Then came Liborio Barney Bellomo, another Genovese captain with waterfront. Roots, the market didn't stop and it simply changed hands. From one mobster to another, federal. Inspectors found that Local 359 of the United II Seafood Workers Union was still controlled by Genovese affiliates. A secret audit showed hundreds of thousands in missing dues and falsified pension reports. The FBI launched Operation Hook Line, following the money through shell companies with names like South Street Ice, Maritime Cartage, and Ocean Cold Storage. All three were registered under relatives of convicted Genovese associates. Undercover agents recorded cash exchanges in bars and diners near the market. The payments weren't for union dues, they were for dock space and protection, just as they had been for half a century. The fish kept coming. The money kept flowing. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Mary Jo White, filed new civil racketeering suits against the union and its officers. The government argued that the mob's influence was so pervasive that the only solution was complete federal trusteeship agents, seized boxes of receipts showing fake wages paid to ghost employees. Many of those names matched known Genovese soldiers. At a press conference, White said, "Organized crime has used this market as its private bank for decades. That ends today, but it didn't end, not yet." In August 1995, Joseph Mac Marino, a market foreman cooperating with investigators, was found dead in his car near Staten Island. He'd been shot twice, and the head prosecutors later confirmed he had been scheduled to testify before a grand jury about mob kickbacks at Fulton. The message was old-fashioned but clear: silence or die. Marino's murder reignited public outrage. The New York City Department of Business Services, working with the FBI, moved to completely restructure the market. The goal was to cut the mob out of the supply chain by physically removing the market from its historic home. The era of Fulton was ending. After years of lawsuits, protests, and political delays, the Fulton Fish Market relocation plan was approved. The new site would be in Hunts Point, Bronx, inside a secure, federally monitored complex with surveillance cameras, license plate scanners, and ID badges for every worker. The plan cost more than $85 million and took 4 years to complete. Many old-timers resisted. Some said Fulton's atmosphere couldn't be replaced. Others quietly feared what federal oversight would mean for their side deals. The last night on South Street came in November 2005. For the first time in 182 years, the Fulton Fish Market closed its doors in Manhattan. Reporters described the scene like a funeral. Forklifts moved slower. Men stood smoking by the river, watching the sunrise over the Brooklyn Bridge. One worker told the New York Times, "I've been here 40 years. The mob ran it, yeah, but the mob kept it running. At dawn, the final trucks left for the Bronx. The old piers fell silent. What was once the busiest fish market in the world, moving 100 million pounds of seafood every year, became another ghost on the waterfront. The aftermath, the new Hunts Point facility, was designed to prevent the kind of corruption that defined Fulton. Entry required background checks. Surveillance covered every loading dock. All payments were logged electronically. The Genovese family tried to adapt, sending new consultants to Hunts Point under fake company names. But the environment had changed. The federal monitors were relentless. By 2007, the Justice Department declared the market substantially free of organized crime control, the system that Joseph Socks Lanza built in 1925, the same system that lasted through 6 decades of bosses, trials, and RICO raids, was finally gone. The Fulton Fish Market became a symbol, not just of mafia power, but of how deeply organized crime could entangle itself with something as ordinary as food. It was never about fish. It was about control of time, access, and fear. From Lanza's handshake deals in the 1920s to Romano's union extortion in the 1970s and Salerno's rackets in the 1980s, the pattern never changed. A product that spoils fast becomes the perfect tool for fast money. Even today, historians say the Genovese family's involvement in Fulton ranks among the longest-running criminal enterprises in American history, nearly 80 consecutive years. Many of the old-timers never adjusted to the new system. Some retired, some moved their businesses upstate, a few stayed on as consultants under federal contracts, men who once paid envelopes under the table now punching in through security gates. When asked about Lanza, one former worker said he was a crook, sure, but he made sure everyone ate. That's the strange legacy of Fulton, a mix of crime, survival and nostalgia for a time when the system, however corrupt, was at least predictable. In its peak year, Fulton handled more than 100 million pounds of seafood, worth nearly $1.2 billion in today's money. Federal prosecutors estimate that from the 1920s to the 1980s, organized crime extracted more than $400 million in unrecorded payments from that trade. That makes the Fulton racket one of the most profitable non-drug mafia enterprises in U.S. history, second only to the Teamsters pension fund schemes at the Fulton Market. Building still stands on South Street, converted into tourist shops and restaurants. A bronze plaque reads, "Site of the original Fulton Fish Market, 1822-2005. Tourists walk past it unaware that this quiet corner once fed an empire. No guns, no drugs, just fish and power." At dawn, the Bronx market still opens the same way. Floodlights flick on, forklifts hum, and men in aprons drag crates across wet concrete. The difference is the silence. No envelopes. No kickbacks. No whispered orders from the Genovese. The fish still comes in, but for the first time in 80 years, it doesn't have to pay to swim ashore.